Ooh, okay. I'm feeling a little vulnerable. That's okay. That's normal.
What's up, wizards? Welcome back to Hacking Fate. We're going to try a live reading. So this is extra fancy and it's live, a little bit edited, but pretend that it's all live and we'll all be good. With me today is Maddie with an I, and I'll let you tell the interwebs about yourself.
So my name's Maddie, and I started a little group online, little occult group called Arcane Awareness, Magic, Mysticism, and the Middle Hand Path. I suppose I practice ceremonial magic, the Western esoteric system, Western mystery traditions. I mean, I kind of have my fingers in a lot of different pies. Yeah, I identify myself as a wizard. That's my whole jam. So yeah, Maddie, here I am.
This is a place for wizards. You are definitely in the right place. For those of you who want to know about Arcane Awareness, that's on the Facebooks. You'll want to go to the Facebooks and find it. And there's also a Discord, but we're there sometimes, we're there not all the time. Are there any other places they should be hanging out?
Just on my regular Facebook. I post all the time. I like connecting with people who are magical practitioners. I'm super open to that. A lot of what I do is I like to connect one-on-one with people, especially people that are just starting to come into the occult community, right? Yeah, I'm super open to people connecting if they want to, but yeah, that's about it.
Well, let's go ahead and jump into the reading. What we're going to be doing today is we're going to be zeroing in on a specific part of your natal chart. But before we do that, we're going to do what's called a consultation reading. This is something that Herman of Corinth advocated, and you can find out all about that in Ben Dyke's book, The Search of the Heart. It's actually Herman of Corinth's book, translated by Ben Dykes. That will lay out kind of what we're doing, and it's a way of seeing, and this is part of my paradigm, what angels are in charge of the moment. So that kind of guides us to what we should discuss. Now, Maddie and I have something we would like to discuss, and I've been preparing for. So if the angels tell me no, I'm going to be very disappointed, but we'll see where things go from here.
Well, the angels and I are like really tight, so I'm hoping that they're on board.
I have now pulled up a thing. I'm checking to see what 12th part the ascendant is in. Each sign can be divided into 12 parts where you start with that sign. In this case, the actual ascendant for the moment where I'm at right now is 26 degrees Sagittarius, 54 minutes. And that will mean that if it was 1 degree Sagittarius, then it would be in the first 12th part. 12 parts move 2.5 degrees. This actually brings us near the end. Give me 1 second and I will look up a thing. Then what I'm going to do is take this and compare it to your natal chart and find out what's going on in that house or that sign. The 12th part is Libra. That is your 4th house or your 4th whole sign house. So your home and family. And we will get into that in a minute. We also have where Herman says what these things are, which is always fun. And this is revenues on account of female or male foreigners.
Interesting. So, wait, like that's the whole excerpt. There's not.
Oh yeah, that's the whole accent. It's really short for that. Normally what we do is we look and see, well, what's going on in your actual 4th house. We don't rely on Herman's little blurbs as much. Sometimes they're really fun.
I try not to look at my 4th house.
Okay, well, we will get to your 4th house in a second. First, we'll play with your 1st house a little bit because we need to understand who you are before we can start understanding your relationship to your 4th house and how all of that plays in. Okay, we'll take a look at Johannes Angelus. He was an astrologer William Lilly referenced. My teacher, Christopher Warnock, always throws that into every natal reading because he has an image for every single degree of the chart. It's kind of cool. You can use it as a talisman. You can use it to represent you in magical operations. They tend to work. They also tend to tell you something about yourself because it's like a little fortune cookie thing. With you, in the 18th degree of Cancer, because your ascendant is 17 Cancer, that is the 18th degree. Johannes Angelus says, in the 18th degree of Cancer ascends 2 women sitting at a play-it tables. I don't know what play-it tables are. A joyful, merry person it represents. So would you say that you're a joyful, merry person?
I feel like that's exactly what's going on right now. Like we're both like, yeah, absolutely. It's like probably disturbing to some people. I can't stop, won't stop.
No, that's perfect. And that's exactly where we're at. I thought that was kind of cool when it came up. I'll be honest, I like that one. The next thing that we kind of play with, because we're just doing baby steps to the chart. Next, we're going to go into your manner. And when I say manner, a lot of people think, oh, etiquette. How polite are you at dinner parties? That's not what manner means in this context. So in our context, manner is actually how you interact with the world, and it's how you interact with those around you. It's your persona when dealing with the world and those kinds of relationships you build. The way that we find out what's going on with manner is we look in the ascendant. I will show you guys that by wiggling my cursor around. So there you go. And in yours, you have Venus and Mercury really, really angular. They're hanging out there dynamically. With Venus stronger, I'm going to go ahead and say that she's your primary significator of manner, but Mercury is going to play a role, as is the moon and also the sun. But really, Venus and Mercury are the two I think are worth looking into. Here's what William Lilly has to say about it. Venus, well constituted in the figure and essentially strong, she imitates pleasant, cheerful, and fair conditioned men or persons, decent in their apparel, good, bountiful, merciful, prone to their delights, given to be cleanly, and to take pleasure in sports and pastimes, subtle, elegant, poetical. That is the basic manner, but what Mercury kind of adds to that, and Mercury is not quite as dignified. So Mercury is going to add in this thinking component. You like to play games. You like to play games where you're matching wits and hanging out with people and wordplay and that kind of thing. It would be very much up your alley. And that's really the basics with how you approach the world. But on the downside of that is sometimes you're a little bit too changeable, and sometimes you're kind of a flake. That sounds mean. I'm not being mean at all.
You gotta call it out.
So those are things that can happen with you. And you know, that's just kind of how you are, and it's part of what makes you so wonderful too. That's the basics of the manner. The other thing that comes into this is being combust. This is who you are when you're able to let loose, but you're not willing to do that most of the time. You really, really have to be comfortable or in a place that you're very comfortable for you to step outside of yourself and really engage in that. Hey guys, let's play a game. Let's have a riddle contest. Let's do these things. That's what you want to do all the time. But most of the time what happens is you're like, oh, they're going to think I'm strange and I don't want to deal with that. Now, what's funny about this is earlier today, I kind of said it sucks that we're friends because there are some things I know about you. And this would be one of those things that I know about you, but is very, very, very evident in your chart. How does that really fit in?
When we're interacting in a group that like I've created, that is like my safe space in my home. People might not, like you might not be aware that I'm a little bit more reluctant to open up, and I'm a little bit more reserved the rest of the time, you know?
That's true. And to the other part of it, and this is where things get awkward. The other thing going on with you is you're constantly searching for yourself and you don't feel very stable in who you are at all. It's kind of like, you know that there's something there and it's really, really important. It's tied very much with the way that you think, but you just don't feel that you don't feel like it's there. It's something that you're always trying to find that foundation. It's just not there. So you feel like you can never truly express yourself. That's another really big thing for you. And it can lead to really bad things and self-undoing because you can take some things too far in the search for self.
Ah, interesting. Yeah, that makes sense for sure. And I think for me, it's always like I'm constantly going within myself and like analyzing and like picking layers apart, and like so it's shifting so much. Like I don't know if other people are doing that as often. I doubt it. I've had a lot of people in my life say like living with me was like living with a psychiatrist or something, because I'm just constantly like rifling through what's in my own being. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Yeah.
So that also plays into, and this is a really good segue, so thank you for setting this up. The next thing that we would look at is your wit. If you really look into like William Lilly, when he talks about wit, he's talking about how smart somebody is. And that's kind of mean. We can't do that now. Astrologers back in the day were awful. They would say mean, horrible things to people. Like, your child is dumb and will never amount to anything in their lives. Now, if it's true, it's true, but there are other ways of handling that. The old astrology books are not good at that. And don't worry, that's not you at all. That's just...
You're setting me up here. You're just like, hey, just to soften the blow.
No. But what it really looks into is we're looking to see how you think and how that works. Like, do you let your emotions rule you, or do you let your thoughts rule you? And this is where really interesting things happen. Normally you'd look for a connection between the two, and you don't have that connection. So your emotions completely blindside you is the way that it works. Like, you see yourself as this like very, very rational person, and you are this very rational person, but then you realize it's 3 a.m. and you have been raging, or you have just like gone somewhere and you have no idea how that happened to you. So that is really kind of how that works. But on the plus side, you learn really, really quickly. Downside, you don't like to express what you've learned. You're not super great at, again, it kind of comes back to what we discussed with your manner. You end up closing up and being just completely overpowered and overwhelmed. And a lot of times that has something to do with your way of life and those things that you kind of assume about, oh, well, this is what it means to live the way I live. Or I don't feel like I have a right to say this because I'm not in the right position to do it. I don't feel like I'm an authority enough to open my mouth. And that's just do it. I know that you're not going to be able to all the time, but it's a thing that you can start looking into. So,
well, that's the great thing I find about astrology in general, is that it gives you like the keys to unlocking any parts of yourself that you're struggling with. You're like, okay, I'm aware of this thing now. So now I can take steps to be proactive about this and work on this thing now that I know. If you don't know, if you're not self-aware enough to know what's going on, then you can't really do that. So astrology is freaking awesome for that.
So how do you feel about how well we've analyzed who you are as a person? Are we ready to go to that fourth house yet?
I'm just, it was like it was pretty spot on in some ways that I'm like, ooh, okay, I'm feeling a little vulnerable. That's okay. That's normal.
Hey, internet, enjoy. I mean, that's like, I feel like I'm exploiting you. I'm not, but
no, it's great. No, that was awesome. It was, super accurate.
So when it comes to your fourth house, which is what we've been pointed towards, which you kind of, you joked about wanting to avoid, there's some interesting stuff. Fourth house is family, but before we really jump into that whole home family, I kind of want to make another observation. And that is that your IC is in your third house. There's something going on where your extended family and your neighbors functioned more as your family in some ways than your actual home family. And that's an issue that's really evident because it's right there on your part of fortune. So the things that happen to you, those are usually family things, but they're home and family things, but they happen with the neighbors. They happen with these other people. They don't happen in your house so much. With your own house, this is normally whenever I do this, super awkward. Let's talk about your parents thing. And I'm not sure how well I'll get this because I'm going out on a limb when I start going into this because this is the really solid astrology that most people don't practice. And if I get this wrong, I can totally edit it out. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, cool.
No, I won't do that. I'm not that. I will leave most of this in. The first thing that I would look at is what's going on with your Venus. Well, your Venus is actually pretty good. So there's something going on like with your parent. They care about you more than you care about them. That sounds like that's so awful, but
it sounds awful, but it's not wrong. It's not wrong.
And the other thing going on with it is you have that there's some kind of confrontational things that happen in the house. It's not a very comfortable place because you have a lot of reactions happening there. There's a lot of kind of anger reactions. It might be, hey, it's um righteous indignation. It might be where people feel like they're justified to be that way. But that really rips apart the love and the community, the what you would need for a home is it's constantly being torn apart by that kind of energy and that kind of severing energy. And it's all things Martian is really what it amounts to. It's a very unhappy Mars. Mars is throwing a tantrum in your house. So you just kind of take that visualization and that's your home life. Now I did cheat a little bit and I looked up the part of and for your mother and father because that's always interesting to look at. Like how did mom and dad get along? And what I found is your mother's lot is in Virgo and your father's lot is in Scorpio. So that kind of comes back to your mom is all over you and focused on you. Your father is focused on the house and your father is making the house not a very comfortable place to be because of the way that he's disposed.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
I've never even met my dad. I've never met him.
Okay.
I don't even know his name.
I don't even know what that means though, but how does that description
no like that makes so much sense. Like to me that makes so much sense because my mom, being a single mom, she's the only parent I've ever known, so for her to be focused on me, absolutely that makes sense. And I'm not sure how personal I'm supposed to go in here, but there was a story where my mom didn't feel comfortable with me being around him anymore, and so like at home, right? So that's kind of how that breakup happened there.
No,
so
that totally sense. Yeah, that fits. And it also, yeah, I mean that there are other things that you could say too. It's interesting because I don't typically play with lots. This is me playing with a new technique. Normally what I would have done there is I would have said, yeah, actually the lot fits much better what's going on. Like that's okay, Dykes. Dykes, you win. Dykes wins that one. Because the way I would normally have done it before I discovered lots is I would have taken the Lord of the 4th house as the father, and then the Lord of the 10th house as the mother. And then I would have also looked at the sun and moon and their relationship with each other. And that the sun and moon relationship to each other is actually something I should have done too, but that's they don't see each other at all, which plays into what you've told me. Because again, you have that moon is in the 12th house and the sun is in the 1st house. So so what's going on with that? Why don't they see each other? And then you go back to the lots. So that was an interesting delineation.
That's cool. Yeah, that's super cool.
So I wonder why we needed to talk about that though. Do you have any specific questions about that kind of thing?
I mean, other than like in my own in my own personal journey, I've just been going through some home stuff, I suppose, and some finding where my home is. So I feel like maybe that's why the universe might have pointed us in that direction, possibly.
Oh,
also,
you want to know about now home, not like childhood home? Okay, fine, we can do that too.
No, I don't know if that. I was actually also wondering about like kind of what we had discussed before too, about like signs in a chart that would lead one to being inclined to study like occult things, or because I know like my chart specifically, like it doesn't have like the really simple basic typical things, right? So I was just curious if you had any other insights into that. It does have
the simple typical thing. What do you think are the typical things for a cult? I'm really curious. What is that? I mean, are you thinking more in terms of like, hey, Uranus doing stuff, because a lot of times Uranus is associated with the occult stuff?
Yeah, or even like, you know, psychic things with Neptune, and I just really basic stuff, which that's never the answer anyways, right? But I just felt like, and I don't have any, like, I don't think I have anything in my 8th house, really, no planets at least. And 12th house, like there's like, to me, my houses seem more like focused on like almost mundane things to me. Like my chart seems like it's like, just looking at it from a very basic point of view, it seems to me that it's not.
So what I'm doing is I'm using whole sign houses for topics, and then I'm using Alcibiades to determine how active a planet is. So how active it's going to be in your life. Well, with you, your icy and your midhaven being in the 9th and 3rd house, the 9th house is the house of religion or the house of God, and the 3rd house is the house of the goddess. Right there, that's a very active axis. And I would say that at that point, religion would be something that would play a part in your life, and magical practice is religion. So if you go back and look at how the ancients dealt with religion, it was more about creed, and it was more about what kind of communities you fit into more than individual spiritual practices. So we kind of have to keep that in mind a little bit whenever I'm reading charts like this. Now, if I pulled up a Uranian chart, that's totally different. And at that point, I'll start doing weird stuff with a 90-degree wheel. And I'm not as comfortable with that as I am with this. When we're looking at spirituality, we look at the 9th and the 3rd and the 12th. Usually those are the 3. Well, what's going on with those places? Your 9th place is Pisces, and there is Saturn. So you have an active 9th house, and you have one of the most angular planets. Well, you have a lot of angular planets, but you have one of your most angular planets in your chart there. So it's with Saturn and Pisces in the 9th house and retrograde. The way that the medieval astrologers would deal with that is they would say, oh, you're going to become an apostate. You're going to completely abandon the religion of your upbringing and do something else, with it being Jupiter is the ruler. Jupiter is also retrograde, so messed up situation there. But Jupiter is well dignified, but retrograde, so delays and problems. Yeah, we have that going on. So you already come from this place where the spirituality isn't very well defined. It's not something that you can lean on. And then when you start looking into something else, you take on something that's a bit more serious publicly. So the way that this was described back in the day with Saturn is it was like, oh, Saturn, all serious people and Jews, because Jews wear black. And I have my teacher, Christopher Warnock, associates it with Zen Buddhist as well, because he's seen that work out. But it's, again, this kind of serious practice. That's the public side, and that's not where your fun stuff is. Your stuff is really in the 3rd house. Your lot of religion is in the 3rd house. So with your lot of religion being in the 3rd house, I would expect that to play a much greater part in your life. Also, your part of fortunes in the 3rd house. Then we get into the mercurial things. Does Mercury support the 3rd house? Yes, he does. He can see that. He sextiles that, so he's able to support it. Well, do the fortunes? Well, you definitely have the fortunes. Well, you have Jupiter kind of working against it, but you have Venus right there conjunct Mercury. So anything Mercury is involved in, she's going to get into as well. That in your chart, any thinking is also fun. That's a big part of what's going on with you. Is it's thinking and fun all the time. They're together.
That's about right.
You have this place that's nice and stable in the 3rd house, but it's still kind of weird because you have the combustion happening, and you bring that into yourself. So you have the alternative spirituality being a core component of who you are and how you identify yourself, because the planets typically will go from an empty house into the house where the planets are. So you pull the stuff, and also religion finds you. And that's the other thing. All these practices find you. And that was one of the things that I didn't go into, because you were like, yeah, we can totally go to the 4th house. But there's a bunch of stuff in your chart because you have these 3 things in your 1st house where all this stuff kind of comes to you. Your lifestyle, your jobs and stuff. Normally that comes, it just kind of falls in your lap. Okay, yeah, I can do that.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, same thing happens when it comes to your home life. That falls into your lap, which is weird because you're like talking about the struggles, but it seems that places kind of appear for you. And it's not the conventional way. It's more like, hey, you're looking for a place and I happen to know a place. Like that's how these things happen for you.
So actually that reminds me of like the current place that I'm living. Like I was being evicted and it was like this horrendous situation. Like I have a toddler, super stressed out, had just gone through a breakup with her dad. And then I did like a little ritual to Uriel to, for some material assistance finding a place. And then the next day I got a message from some random person who saw me post on Facebook. I met the landlord the next day and didn't even ask me for a reference or anything and just gave me this wonderful abode. So that totally, like, lots of situations where it's like strange luck.
My analysis of that is you have this alternative spirituality and you have the 12th house ruled by the same planet in your first house. All of that energy gets pulled to you. But that also means that your undoing just drops in your lap too. The things that are bad for you, here you go. Here's this awful thing. Have fun with it. And that's also a problem that you kind of have to be aware of. The fourth, what is the other one? The other one that drops, friends. Friends appear in your world. They just manifest. They are. That is, and usually they get attached to you. Like they're the ones who really support the relationship. Not that you don't care and that you don't support it, but they put a lot of effort into it and they just naturally do that. There's no kind of bad feelings or anything. It's just the way things are in your experience. That's your chart's so complicated when it comes to yourself and how all these things kind of, it's like so many topics revolve around you because you have these three things right there on your ascendant. But that moon being in the 12th house and not being able to support the ascendant means that it's never stable. There's always that place that, like, it's always not quite what you would like. Now, there's some mitigation there. You have a fortune, Venus in a decent condition in that house. That's the main mitigation. Those things to lean on. So a lot of times Venus will pull you through. You also have a night chart. So again, Venus is the more powerful of the fortunes for you. Yeah, go out and make those connections. And with you, it's more about making connections than winning honors. You can create those liminal spaces and really bring a lot of joy to people and really help them connect. And that's the networking that you can benefit from.
That's totally, and even it relates to like me wanting to converse like one-on-one with people, because I feel like we go to these levels that like just really deep. Like it's something I really enjoy. I feel it's like I almost act like a catalyst for like in those intimate moments with people, and it's something that I like really enjoy. Like I'm not going to be the person that's seeking to talk to a large group of people to like do a presentation. That's not really like, I'll do it. I will, but like, but my thing would be more like that one-on-one, like, let's get to those deeper layers, So yeah, that makes sense.
You're also much more comfortable like setting up the conference than being the authority at the conference. You want to grab all of your friends and bring them together and say, hey guys, this could be awesome. And then you can flirt around and like hang out with them one-on-one.
That's exactly what I do.
But you like throw the MC duties to somebody else. Like, oh, you get to be the authority. I don't want that. I just want to make this fun place for my friends.
Yeah, so absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of the whole idea, like with the group, right? Like I just wanted a place where people could, hang out, have a community, a real community, rather than having it solely based on the scholarly, uptight occult world. I was like, well, can we make this a little bit more fun? We're talking about magic, so let's make it magical.
Oh yeah, I mean, given my own tradition, who drinks with me? I mean, that's what I do. So I appreciate the space, and I've really enjoyed it. Do you have any other questions? Have we played with enough of the stuff? Oh wait, I didn't ever tell you a functional occult practice, did I?
I would like to hear that. I'm like all I'm all ears.
Okay, so with the way that your chart works, I think that you're already on the right path with the amount of reading and studying you do, because Mercury is very, very much a part of it, as is Venus because she's conjunct Mercury. Now, Mercury is kind of leading things, but Venus is supporting him. In this situation, I would say you need to do equal part complex ceremonial stuff, not as much like Goetia, which would be more of a Martian thing, but the knowing the timing, knowing the names, doing all of the calculations. But you also need to have some kind of a veneration in there, some kind of a love type bhakti yoga type practice. And I think that you'd be really, really successful with that. Also, usually whenever we like prescribe talismans, you want to get talismans for the stuff that you're strongest in, because that will just make it shoot through the roof. And with yours, that would definitely be to Venus. Venus talismans are your friends. I would avoid Mars talismans if I were you. I would avoid Jupiter talismans and Saturn talismans if I were you.
Interesting.
Jupiter you might be able to get, but I would do divinations beforehand, because Jupiter's retrograde but dignified. So I have that going on in my chart. Now, if you wanted to do a Mars talisman or a Saturn talisman because you want to burn through those lessons and you really want to plug into the spiritual side of things, you can. But one of my friends on the internet's very awesome wizard, Clifford Lowe, when he went through that kind of process, I believe he said that it took him about 2 years of living through hell to burn through the negatives of doing that, but that he very much appreciated it. So that's another school of thought. I'm a little bit more with Warnock, but that's just because I have plenty going on in my life, and if I were to start doing my bad planets, that would not be good. I would have to time that based on, do I want to give up some of the best potential places in my life to burn through that, or do I want to make my life really, really suck? I don't know yet. So I focus on what's really strong in my chart, and Mercury is one of those things too. So I understand I understand Mercury and Venus.
Yeah, it's actually funny that you're bringing up Venus, because it's actually an energy that I haven't personally identified a whole lot with, but I guess like when I'm thinking about it, it does make sense for just my general like air, like just kind of how deeper connection, and like it's, you know, that kind of feeling energy that yeah, it does make sense to me objectively. It's just something that I'd never really put together in my chart somehow.
Oh, well, I was going to harass you with timing, but I don't think that we need to go there right now. Is there anything else you would like to ask, or we are done with the reading?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're good and you've talked about the points that you wanted to talk about, I think, yeah, that was very insightful.
Cool. Well, we'll see y'all later, and hopefully you come hang out in Arcane Awareness with us.
Heck yeah.